And the mic is on right now, so he said just to be careful because they can hear.
Awesome. Huh. One more minute. One more minute. Yeah, because if they're like us, we break our necks, putting dinner away, and then we fly into a parking spot, and then you come in. So
It's good. I can have it right outside here, so I can make that.
the getaway.
Yeah, that's right. Stage door.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for being here tonight at our Senior College Information Night. What we're going to try to do tonight, Mrs. Prestiani and myself, is lend some insight into this process where you are at this stage. So those of you who were with me last spring and were with the counselors in their offices last spring and working through this journey, we're at the point now where we're looking at the Common App, we're looking at maybe a final SAT, ACT, and maybe with the insight that you've gained over the spring and the summer to maybe ask some nuanced questions to us or maybe at a college fair. On your way out, I had just put these on the table back there. This is a flyer for the Nassau Counselors Association College Fair that will take place on September 30th. So, there is a QR code where you can register, but this fair for seniors is not so much the last-minute shopping, although you might find a hidden gem at this college fair, but it's more about asking those senior questions about college credits, about AP credits, about financial aid opportunities, all those kinds of things. So it's a good thing to hit, and you have a month really to prepare for this. In gathering those questions as a family. One thing I want to share with you before I turn it over to Mrs. Prestiani, we're already getting scholarship opportunities emailed to me. We put them on our website. So if you can, it's going to be a busy fall, but get on our website, look at our scholarship list from last year, that's still there, and the ones that we're starting to populate for the 25-26 school year. That is something that we add to every month. We'll get scholarship opportunities throughout the year, so check that early and often. Okay, so with that, let's get started. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Mrs. Prestiani.
Hi, good evening. I'm Mrs. Prestiani. I'm so happy to see so many students of mine or other people's caseloads that I work with. And the first thing I want to do is give a wonderful plug for our guidance department. I'm a former admissions counselor. Like many of my colleagues in our department, we all, for the most part, worked in admissions in some capacity. And I will say, as also a private college counselor for almost 25 years, I get a peek into what our other rivals or surrounding districts, what's going on in their guidance office, what are they doing. Sometimes there's something interesting or fun, I'll bring it back to them and say, oh, this district's doing this. But for the most part, I have to tell you, for the students who are here, for the parents who are here, your children are in such good hands. I am so privileged every day. I work with the smartest, kindest, willing to do anything group. So if you are hesitant at any time, you're not sure, there's such a wealth of information with them. So coming up, we're gonna go over that in a little bit. We're going to be having senior meetings soon, but I do wanna say your counselor is such a great resource in this district. I see it as such an advantage compared to, no names mentioned, but other districts. So I'm proud of our group. So tonight we're going to go over a lot of information. It's very overwhelming. I tell my students over the years that when I applied to college, they've heard the story a million times, I hand wrote my college essay. I tore out the application from a SUNY view book and I mailed it in. Where were my parents? I do not know, but I hand wrote everything. And then I once had a student said, wow, you didn't have typewriters back then. No, we did. I just didn't know to use it. So it is very overwhelming. We're going to try to give you as much information. The whole point of tonight is you've done a lot of research. You can't go on social media at night without something on TikTok, something on Instagram, Instagram, something on Facebook, or your neighbor said this, and you should use this person, and this person should did this, and this worked for this. It's so much information, but if we can give you some little tips that might make things a little less stressful, that's our goal always, is to try to refine this process a little bit. So by now, some things that everyone should have done. You should have asked teachers for letters of recommendation, at least one, possibly two if you did. The counselor writes a letter for everyone. We ask the students to complete a counselor form just to give us a little feedback of how do you spend your summer. Tell us a little bit more about your family. This way, when we're sitting down, whether it was over the summer or in the fall, it's a refresh. As well as we think we know everyone, it is nice to hear something from the student perspective, and obviously the parent was able to provide some insight too. This is when we get a little window into, is something going on medically or financially, or was there something that the student overcame that we weren't aware of? We put those smaller details that might seem smaller to the family, but we do put that because when a counselor on the admissions side is looking at a transcript or they're looking at an essay, it does give a little bit more about what else was going on. So we always find that helpful to add some specific personal details, and that's very helpful. Summer email, we did a whole bunch of, I know we notified everyone about dates coming up, information about matching your accounts was coming up. We always recommend that students are checking their email, whether it's school or home, every day. We sent out the timeline of what we expect and the turnaround time, which we'll go into a little bit more detail soon. And we also gave information that's very important. We are a Naviance district, so it's very important that students who are using the Common App are matching their Common App with Naviance. Some of you may not know these terms, you're not just there yet, but we did send out information that has instructions on how to match those accounts. Essentially, the student sends out the application fee, the counselor will send your transcript and your letters of rec. In order to do that, they kind of have to marry up. So there's specific steps that will hold up your application unless those are married together. And if you don't have a copy of that, do we have that posted on the website?
It's on the website.
Great. So you can always look at the website, or if you're really stuck, a counselor can always help you. So right now, like I just said, we're going to get started very soon with our seniors. Next Friday, we actually begin right away, second and third period, based on the alphabet. We'll be meeting with our seniors in groups. It's a great little catch-all reminder of where you should be at. Checking in with your teachers. If you asked your teacher for a letter of recommendation back in March and then you haven't checked in again, this is a good time. Maybe you message them on Schoology soon and you say, I hope you had a great summer. Thank you again for agreeing to write my letter of recommendation. I wanted to point out to you, I'll be applying to some southern schools that are due very early. My counselor recommended that maybe I reach out to tell you that I have a 10-1 deadline, or I would love if you could get my letter in by 10-1. You're gracious, you're kind, you're giving a little hint of some information without overwhelming them, but those deadlines are important. Then students are going to be told that they can have individual conferences with us. Everyone who wants one can have one. You can bring your college essay. You can bring application login information if you want us to jump on. We can look at your essay together. We can give you feedback. It's essentially whatever the senior is at where they're at currently. It is okay if you're feeling overwhelmed and you have not started. We have had plenty of students where we give them a to-do list. We said, great, you got the first part done. We're going to assign these 2 other parts to do, and then we're going to make a follow-up appointment with you. It's something that I know a lot of districts don't do, but we are welcome to have anyone who needs some additional help. We're always there to do that. We have college fairs coming up, the mini college fairs here at Wantagh. They're phenomenal. Back in the day when we worked in admissions, we were the people who not only were going from school to school, but we were the people making those decisions. So often that person here is your regional rep. It's a great chance. If Fairfield's here, or Sacred Heart's here, or Quinnipiac's here, Delaware, a bunch of SUNY schools, if they're coming here, this is the chance for you to introduce yourself, maybe tell them something about yourself or a question you might have, and then afterwards you can always send a little thank you to that person and maybe reference something that you discussed in that meeting. It's those little tips that can help you get a little bit more memorable to the admissions counselor who's meeting thousands of students. Yeah.
I am going to send out a Parent Square message tomorrow with the schools that will be here on Tuesday the 9th and again on Tuesday the 16th, so that you'll have an idea. If one of those schools happens to be on your list, you can prepare as a family and student can ask questions.
And the great thing about them, you know, there are the local ones, the NCA one, the Hofstra one at Hofstra. Those are great, but this is just for students only. This is a chance for a student to really shine and advocate for themselves. Just hit the. So right now, if you didn't see enough colleges or you wish that you had seen a few more, we do have some holiday weekends coming up over the next few months. It's a great time to still try to get a spend a day, a virtual interview fit in, a regular campus visit or information tour if you can. We have the SAT and the ACT coming up. We don't offer the ACT here, but you can sign up. And obviously, we have the September SAT and the October SAT. I believe we are full for September. And how are we with October? Not looking, we're close. So if you were wanting to do one last test, now's the time. Those are great opportunities if you're applying early action, which means you're getting your application in by a certain deadline early in the fall. October is typically your last test date that you'll be able to take in order for it to be received, the scores to be received by the colleges in time. Transcript request form, that's something that we're going to show students next Friday. We're going to show them a sample, although we might have one coming up right on the slide. But the transcript request form is something we're going to make sure all students complete. It is very important for the counselor. The student needs to fill out the schools they are applying to, which letter of recommendation they would like. So if a school like Maryland, who only wants one letter of rec, out of the two teachers you ask, which letter would you like sent to the college? So that's going to be on there. The deadline, sometimes we ask for the major if you have a major. It is a critical piece of information to make sure we don't miss any deadlines. We tell the students 50 times, they're not to ever leave it in our mailbox. You can't leave it with the secretary. They have to hand it to us. We want to look over. We want to make sure, okay, you said you wanted Mr. Garrett, you got it. We're going to send Mr. Gary's letter. We want to make sure there's no issues with getting the correct material out for the student. SAT and ACT, we talked a little bit about this just now. You can register. Obviously, if you have some regular deadlines, the November test would be okay. The biggest thing and probably the most common question we get about the SAT or ACT is, should I send my scores? It's a really personal question. Sometimes we can be helpful, or we'll jump on the phone and call a college together, which is really nice. Or sometimes if it's just so busy, we'll tell the student or the parent to please call the school. I was telling Mr. Musio earlier today that we got an incredible email from Tufts. Tufts sent out a great email saying, if this is your score, we highly recommend you send this score. They said like a 1300. That's typically what they're looking for. They said that they would like to see. We wish more schools sent that because it is such a gray area. I have a 1090. Is that good for this school? I have a 1270. Is that okay for this school? But the school's requiring scores. It's very personal, but if you're ever not sure or if the school is test optional, that is something to look at. Fairtest.org has the list of schools that are test optional. Obviously, it's starting to evolve, right? Ohio State came back this year where they're requiring scores. Many of the Ivies are coming back with scores. The preferred method can be College Board. It depends on the school. Some schools will accept self-reported scores on your Common App. However, just keep in mind, when you're putting those scores on and you don't want them sent to everywhere, you have to remember to take the scores off. It can get a little tricky. Sometimes the counselors recommend you just send them officially through College Board. There is a fee, but something to think about. It's always easier if it's students are applying test optional because they don't have to worry about this. But if you have specific questions, we're always welcome to try to see what the best plan is. To send the scores officially, you're going to follow the prompts. You're going to log into your account. You're going to see where it says send scores. You're going to click on the school, and then it will give you an option of whether you want to send all the scores or do you want to select specific test dates that you want to send. For the SAT, you have to, some people think it'll filter just your highest reading in math, but it goes by test date, so that's something to keep in mind. If you want to send them all, there is a fee to send those scores, so keep that in mind. And sometimes it's quick, and some schools are downloading on a daily basis any materials coming in, so we'll see 48 hours. The information will be there, and sometimes even up to a month it can take to get scores. So keep that in mind with your timeline if you're thinking of those early schools and those early action schools, bless you. If you're thinking of that, just be aware of making sure all your materials are in by that due date because we don't want anything holding up your application. Okay, college applications. There's so many different ways. So I would say primarily most of our students use the Common Application. They did revise it this year. It seems to be a little bit more organized, a little bit more user-friendly. It saves as you go, which is great. You can keep working on that. The Coalition we're seeing a little bit less of. Typically, we see students use the Coalition when on the Common App you can apply up to 20 schools. Sometimes students do push it and want to apply to 30 schools or 25 schools, so they'll use the Coalition as another platform to send some applications out to, but primarily Common App. Some students are comfy with the Common Application, the SUNY application, and they prefer that, but obviously almost all the SUNY schools are on the Common App, so sometimes it's one-stop shopping and easy to apply there. The CUNY app is a separate application. You can apply up to 6 schools for one fee, so if you are interested in a city environment, that could be a great option for you, but they do have their own separate application process, and something that's popular with our students is the Honors College, the Macaulay Honors College through CUNY, and that is also an additional separate application method. And then you can also apply to colleges directly on their college websites. I know last year many of the schools in Michigan had Michigan Free Week, but for the most part they were wanting, certain schools were requiring you to use the Michigan application. Same thing with Alabama. Alabama has a free week or free couple of days. You couldn't use your Common App account, and their application mirrors the Common App. So I had students have both applications up on the screen, and they were just cutting and pasting the material. Hey, you save $60 or $50, $70. It adds up very quickly. Use a card with flyer miles or points rewards, any little bit to maybe get something back. But for the most part, I would say 95% of our students use the Common App. This is our transcript request form. This is going to be very important for our students. There's plenty of them at all times in the guidance office. They are that goldenrod color for a reason, so they're easy for us to locate. We keep them all together. After we're done with them, we file them away in the students folder. But this is where you're gonna let us know, where are you applying? What's the deadline? Are you applying ED somewhere, early decision, or early action, or is it a rolling school? On the right, it has the teacher letters of recommendation in order of preference. So we know, like I said before, if a school only wants one letter, you're gonna tell us what is your top pick out of the teachers. And no, the students don't get to see the letters. They're waiving their rights. It is sometimes a tough call, but we always say, like, who knows you best? Like, yes, maybe you did great in both class, but where do you really have a little bit more of a connection? Or maybe it's something tied to your major. You know, you're thinking of something with political science or pre-law, maybe a class that there is a little bit more writing and reading involved. So we'll try to help you make those connections without, still giving the control over to the student. But it is due, this is very important, 10 days before any deadline. Years ago, there was Sandy, and it happened right before the deadlines, and students were panicking because they waited, and we weren't getting their materials at a time, and some schools were okay with that, and some schools were giving us a hard time. So we are pretty firm with 10 days before. So if you have 11-1, right, a lot of SUNYs are 11-1, you have an 11-1, 10 school days prior is when we need the form. Now, does that mean you need to be done by then? Technically, no. Sure, you can have a little bit more time, but we do recommend, not leaving things to the last minute. I have a student last year who, phenomenal student, had a private counselor, but said one last time, could you just look over before I send the rest of my schools out? And she had already sent out half of her schools, and I saw that there was multiple typos, and she paid so much money for a counselor. So I was a little worried about that. But that's why we don't rush things. We don't rush it, because even like mom looked, and my older brother who's at, Binghamton looked at it, and we had all these people look. It happens. Your eyes are tired. You've looked at the same essay 90,000 times. Fresh eyes are helpful. That's where coming into a guidance appointment, we can kind of look, but all that takes prior planning, right? That's not something the day before, can you look at my Boston College application? Like, it's just not gonna work out as best as you want it to be. So keep in mind deadlines and timelines 10 days prior. Application deadlines, we started talking a little bit about this. Early decision, we always say it's like definite, right? It's binding. Those are the schools where, you left the tour, you got the mug, dad's got the visor, mom's got the pajamas. Like, that's the kind of school where, like, if you get in, we're going. Like, it's a we, right? The parents are going, everyone's going. You have to really know. The biggest issue with that is obviously finances, right? You look at a school like Syracuse, NYU, we're looking at $100,000 a year, and there's, you're not sure what's going to happen with financial aid, 100%. So it's a big decision. Can it give you an edge? Sure. You're telling the college, you're going to take me, I'm coming, right? And sometimes you look at the percentages and you'll see, wow, this school, if you apply regular, they're going to take 8%, but maybe if I applied early decision, it's 33%. But that's not for everyone. You really have to have serious financial talks with the family. Now, you can break ED if you can prove that you cannot afford it after they give you your financial aid. I've had maybe 2 students in 20-something years who did that, so it's very rare. But again, have these talks. If there's a school you love that much, you have to make sure you're willing to commit financially. Early action, a little safer, right? You apply early, you find out early, but then you're given till May 1st to make that final decision. A lot of times to be considered for the most amount of scholarship, academic scholarship, merit money, you need to apply as early as possible. So keep in mind that early action deadline is important. However, you're not ready, you're overwhelmed, you're just not there, there is regular, and that's usually around January 1st. Then there's regular enrolling, which we have it combined there, but it's pretty different. Regular, like I said, January 1, and you'll probably hear back by April 1. So you are waiting, you're only going to have about a month to make that decision and kind of scrutinize financial paperwork and go back and visit and go to accepted students day. Rolling decision, I will say, that's a whole bunch of those southern schools, right? Ole Miss and Alabama and LSU, right? These great schools. A lot of them you might hear back in 2 weeks if you get that out right now, and some of them don't even require a transcript. They're doing like an honor code system. So just keep that in mind. If there is a school that's rolling, sometimes if your grades are strong, like it might be beneficial for you to apply sooner than later because you're at the top of the pack. Obviously, as the season goes on, it gets a little bit more difficult to get in. So it's something you want to think about. Linking your account. We talked about this before. So on the Common App, under the individual college section, there's something called FERPA. That's basically the Privacy Act that's you're giving us permission to send your confidential information, your transcript, your letters of rec out to the colleges. So we do require that you send that. We cannot send out your materials without you completing that. You only fill it out one time. So once you see that FERPA, you fill it out, it defaults to all the colleges. The second piece of linking your account is matching your Naviance with your Common App. This seems to be the biggest holdup for a lot of our students who are ready. They don't remember their Naviance username and password. Sometimes we have to reset. Just send us an email if you're not sure. We can always do that. We try to do it as fast as possible, but obviously this is the time when a lot of students are reaching out with wanting that information. But it is critical for you to make sure you know how to log into Naviance. Yeah, sure.
Just about the Naviance accounts, I can hear some of the seniors in the room saying, I don't know if I remember that. All you have to remember is your email address that you used, Gmail or Yahoo, whatever it was. What we tried to do was make your passwords capital letters, first initial, last initial, and then your birthday. If you were born on the 1st of January 2008, 01/01/2008. The only students we didn't do that for is if they had 3 characters consecutive that were the same. In other words, if someone was born on November 11th, can't use 1111. So we had to make that your address. But for 9 out of 10 students in this class, it's going to be first initial, last initial, and your birthday. So give that a try. If it doesn't work, call me. Fair? 2008, so it's a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day, but it's preceded by capital letters of your initials, first initial, last initial. So give that a try. If it doesn't work, call me. Yes. That's okay. You can have 2 consecutive characters. That's okay. We just can't have 3 characters in a row. So that's why I say if you're born on November 11th, we can't use it. Okay.
And again, a lot of times we just get the email, help me. We get that. Okay, so this is very important. It's something that we will highlight a few times with our seniors, is to be organized. The first thing is the college email address. When you hit submit on the Common App or SUNY app, the first thing that happens is you get an email from Common App that says we got your application, great news. Within 24 to 48 hours, that specific college that you submitted to will send you an email to your personal email address, okay? You always want to be using your personal email address in all of this. That email is going to be crucial. It's going to have information to set up the individual college portal. You have to set that up for each school you apply to. You're applying to 15 schools, it's 15 portals. And of course, this one wants an asterisk, and this one wants your birth date, and this one wants, please be organized. Some people like to put it in their phones, in their notes tab. Some people put it on a Google Doc that's shared with family members. Just keep a running list. I can't begin to tell you how many times seniors make follow-up appointments with us, and we can't get on. I don't know what my mom made it, and I don't know, I forgot, I never wrote it down, and then we're hitting reset password, or we're having to call the tech department, and next thing you know, it takes a whole week for us to see the student again because we had to wait to get the password reset. So just make sure you're understanding that after you apply, you're setting up the portal for each school with your personal email, and you should be checking your email every single day. Not just to make sure that there's important news, but we've told our students now for the past 2 years, colleges are emailing you, and many of the schools are tracking if you're checking their emails. So, we've called the schools to verify. We called American when one of our top kids didn't get in there, and we said, wait, what? And they said she didn't even open up an email. She never even checked. She never even looked. They could see if they not only opened, but if they then clicked on the link that they were trying to get the person to read. So I know it's a little gamey and it's a lot of things to remember, but take that extra step when you're getting, I'm not saying for every school. Pick your top 6 or 7 and do it for all those schools. Supplemental essays, also be organized. Many schools have them. So you want to, a lot of my students will make a Google sheet of the schools, the deadline, and then either cut and paste what the supplement is. I like that way because usually I can find if there's similar essays. So maybe BU this year might have something similar that could connect with Villanova's, right? Or Hofstra has something similar to Marist, right? When you have them all together, you can kind of see, I can maybe use that, but you want to change it enough. Oh, can you just hit the... you want to make sure that they're different enough and you're always personalizing, but this is another thing that can't be left to last minute. These supplements are sometimes even more important than your main essay, depending on the school, so you want to make sure you're starting nice and early, you're proofreading, you're staying organized, you're paying attention to word count. I had a student who wrote a stunning essay last year, 500 words, it was great. The essay was supposed to be 100. So all that work in the week's planning, and then it was a 100-word 2-sentence line. Same thing with like the Maryland supplements, right? People think, oh, what did I do last Sunday or Monday, whatever the question is, and they write this whole thing, and I'm like, oh, it was 10 words. Like, you gotta cut all that down. So pay attention to what you're reading, stay organized, pay attention to deadlines. Common App Dashboard, I love it. As soon as you log in, if you filled out the initial information, it does have a little countdown for you. It's reminding you what's coming up, what's your first deadline. I do like to work that way. I think it makes sense. Like, okay, my first couple of deadlines are 11/1. I'm going to focus on that batch. Then 11/15, I'll work on that batch. Then 12/1. Unless there's a school you really love, then I always say prioritize that. Even if the deadline, like Delaware, says 11/1, nope. I would do it now. I would do it by October 1. Let's get it in. This is for Wantagh people only, by the way. I would get it in. This is just information for admissions reps. They're saying if you can get it in even a month prior. Grades still count. Yay, seniors. Grades count. I hope most of you are taking a rigorous schedule. Every college, for the most part, on the Common App, they're going to get your mid-year grades in February. We send them out. However, here's the game changer. There's a school, I don't know if they're here, but I have some students in my senior class who the eye is on Binghamton. Binghamton. I say don't even wait for the February grades. Let's crush it. Let's lock in, as my senior son, I have a senior son, is saying, I'm going to lock in, Mom. Let's see. But let's make sure that those grades are good, and when they come out in November, right, that's you get those grades, and either I will send them, your counselor will send them, or you can send them directly. You can reach out to your rep. Hi, just wanted to reach out. I met you back at the mini fair at Wantagh. Wanted to let you know that my first quarter grades came out. I'm having my best year ever. Just wanted to share that information with you as soon as possible. Now you're touching base with them, now you're showing them how you're doing, and you're showing them that you can handle senior level rigor. You have time. Now that's on there, but it depends on what your plan is. Some of you do have this is not meant to stress you. We're trying to give you as many details of what really is it's gotten so competitive. I know everyone's feeling it. I can tell if you're here, you're already at an advantage, right? So I commend everyone who's here after a long day of school or work and then running to practice and then getting here. But for some of you, time is ticking, and so some of you, you might have a little bit more time. The best thing possible, though, is that we're going to start meeting within a week or so with our seniors. So if you are ready, we're going to say, if you are in a good place where you're feeling confident, you really want to get to work, we'll book you right away, and we'll go over things for you. So you have time, but just make the most of your time. Make sure you're staying organized. Oh, the college essay. So for most schools, it's required 500 to 650 words. Some students are writing it in their English 12 Foundations class. Some students got a head start in the spring if they were in AP English. They did a personal narrative just to get the feel of things, of how to write an essay about yourself. We're taught how to write about Shakespeare and how to write some poems, but this is the first one really about you. So it's 500 to 650 words, and you want to make sure the topics, I think, are on the next page. The words that always stick out is you. It needs to be about you. And I will tell you, over the decades that we've been reading essays, some of the best are simple. One story, I have one student who showed me their essay recently. They talked a lot about their pride or their culture and their grandfather, and then he's doing community service, but then also he had a summer job. It became like a relisting of his summer experiences or his activity list. That's not what this is about. This is about a story. Some of my best essays that I read recently, one was about switching a friend group, learning how to walk away from a friend group that maybe was giving you a hard time. I have another student who wrote about not feeling connected to students. I have another student who's dealing with a long-distance relationship. So they get a little personal, but that's what they're looking for. They're looking for a little bit more than just what was one activity. It can be something that's maybe meaningful to the family. I have a student who's writing about surfing, but doing it in a very different way. I would say think about what makes you. What's going to make your personality shine? If you're funny, be funny. If you're not, please don't be funny. It does not translate well, and it's just cringy, awkward. Every student, usually comes by and like, oh, I have nothing bad. I have nothing bad to write about. Like they're excited. Like they're like, I wish I want. I'm like, no. Like let's brainstorm. What did you do this summer? And then we'll kind of get to like, what was different? What did you learn about yourself? Where did you maybe learn something different that you hadn't done, or you tried something new? That's what they're looking for, because they're looking at the bigger picture. The essays where they say like, and this is how I grew personally, emotionally, and blah, blah. You don't need to spell it out for them. These are people who are seasoned. They've been doing this for years. So you want to be dynamic, you want it to be well written, but you want it to be personal. I much rather read a more casual essay than everything so nitpicky. And the biggest advice I can give is we can tell when a 17-year-old has not written it. And if we can tell, they can tell. First of all, they're running them through AI, right? And if it's a certain percentage, they're going to see how much did AI help. I'm not talking about 20, 30%. I'm saying like, if it's coming back 40, 50, 60%, 80%, you can't run it through AI. You can't, you really have to be using the noggin. And also I had a student who, their surfing essay wrote something like, the water was dancing beneath my feet. I looked at him, I'm like, you did not say the water was dancing. And he was like, that was my sister. She goes to Cortland and she loves to ride and she just wanted, I'm like, your sister's at Cortland. Like, that's great. She already is there. You are not dancing with the water. Like, you're just not. So it's things like that where we want to pull back and rephrase things, go back. I always say, let the student write it first. Even if it's the worst thing you've ever read, let them get something on paper, and then you can, if you really feel inclined to help the student. We also have teachers here. There's us, and the great thing about the counselors, like, we're not nitpicking grammar. We're looking for content. We're looking what's going to make them read more than line 1, right? They're spending 7 minutes on you, maybe 9 if it's a stronger school. What's going to keep them reading? So that first paragraph has got to be solid. It's got to be so like, what's different? Sometimes I've read essays in like the 4th paragraph where I'm like, this is your opening. This is not your conclusion. This is how you're starting it. This is going to make me want to keep reading. Like, ooh, what happened? I had a student who wrote an essay 2 years ago. It was, I don't want to give too much away, but it was so good. It was about him giving a letter to someone who he liked and taking that risk and being shut down. and the humility, but also like he was so proud of himself that he put himself out there. It was so clever and so different, and who couldn't relate to like trying to put yourself out there, you know, and like and go for it. So I think if someone's reading all these essays and like, and then in the robotics team I won, blah blah, they don't want that. They want to feel a little heart, something there. So and not a regurgitation of your activities. I have nothing to write about. Okay, that's another thing. I have nothing. Again, we can help you. The English teachers can help you. Even just scheduling a brainstorming session if you need to, that's totally fine. I'll say to a student, like, come up with maybe 3, 4 ideas, or let's think about, make a list of 20 things that maybe are unique about you. Something, you know, your favorite food, something that you did last year, something that, a setback that you had academically, something, and we'll try to pull a story from there. Everyone has something. It could be this little thing that you can make into something just really beautiful. Writing exercises, these are some things that we were talking about. Look back on 3 pictures that were maybe important to you. Make lists of, I said about 20, 21 details, small little random parts. Journaling, getting some ideas down, favorite places that you've been to. 3 fears. I had a student about 5 years ago who just wrote about her hands. She was an artist. And all she wrote about, it was like, you know, the paint that's left on the fingers and what's left the next day. But then, like, even though that artwork was done, like, there was still permanent paint on her jeans. And it just showed how passionate she was, and that she felt like that each thing she did had left an imprint because she was constantly wearing those clothes or looking at her hands. Beautiful essay, right? Simple. Hands. She wrote about her hands. So, you know, those are just some ideas. And if you're stuck, like I said, you can always come to one of us. Things to keep in mind. Proofread, we talked about this. Common errors we tell students all the time. They have difficulty spelling psychology, business, putting things down. Complete sentences would be good. If they write it on their phone sometimes, so it has like a lowercase I instead of a capital I. Those are the biggest errors we see. We see a lot of like acronyms. We told the students who attended our summer session, you know, students put down war. Some colleges are like, there's a war club? Like they're gonna have we're like, it's animal rights and recycling. But they don't know that. You know, maybe they're applying to schools in California. They don't know what that is. So thinking about that, even paying attention to where you're putting things in certain sections. We see all the time under the honors portion that people are listing honors classes that they took, and that's not what that's for. That's for any kind of achievement that you had. We worry about the hurry. That's something we say all the time, is that timeline. Like, you don't want to wait last minute. We know of schools who have said it just shows that you maybe really don't care too much if you're rushing that much and not paying attention to the proofreading. Second set, third set of eyes is always helpful. And before, you know, on that last slide, it said the preview tab on every page of the Common App in the right corner. It says preview. It shows you the format of what the actual admissions counselor will see. So I think it's a great way. You can even print it. So old school me, I still have a paper calendar. I'm sorry. I just can't sync, and there's too many steps. But I love to like highlight and say, like, could we use a better word here? Is there a better action word here? Was there some way that we can rephrase this? So sometimes printing that out, even just one time printing out your final essay and just going through it one last time. We had the NYU rep, was it 10 years ago, who said instead of tutoring, a student wrote torturing. True story from the director of NYU, and said that kid did not get in because they're like, it's careless. You know, it's just, you going to NYU, you should proofread. The one size must fit all. We had students a few years ago, one student who wrote at the end of their essay, and this is why I would love to be the University of Maryland, just like my dad, and sent it to all the schools. So don't do that. Have students personalize things, sure, but you have to be like, you have to put the essay on, submit, go back in, take that essay off, put the other essay back on. It's a lot of steps. Save it. Write a personal email instead. I think that's even a better way. They're wanting to hear from students more and more. So I say leave your essay, make it generic, and then use the supplements or use a personal email straight to the admissions rep. that little mistake can go to a whole number of colleges. And also making sure you're applying to the right school. We get this all the time, the wrong Maryland. So people apply to Baltimore instead of the College Park, St. John's, Mount St. Mary's, there's like 5. So like Loyola Chicago, Loyola Maryland. So just make sure you're selecting the right one. Don't ever guess in the application, especially if you're applying to a SUNY or a New York State school. There's something called EOP, HEOP. There is a financial component that you must be under in order to qualify. A lot of students will say, sure, are you interested in HEOP? Sure. You are put into a pool that doesn't get evaluated till late spring. You have to make sure that you are qualified and you meet those criteria of the finances to be considered for that, because it will hold you up. You're evaluated completely differently. Scholarships, it says, are you interested in this scholarship? Sure. And then you read the criteria. It shows that you didn't read at all. You know, maybe there was a certain heritage or cultural background or a major that you needed to do. So they're going to tell that you're just clicking things. Speaking of majors, I had a student the other day who picked, I was reviewing before he submitted, and I see he picked actuary science. So I said, oh, you picked actuary science here. You know, be careful. And he's just like, no, that's what I'm doing. And I said, you said you wanted to do architecture. And he said, isn't that similar? I said, no, our actuary and architecture is totally different. And but the kid's like, oh, I thought it was similar. So, and I get it, we're rushing and we're just clicking things. So be careful of that. Special programs, they'll say, you interested in this? Click on the link or go take a second to Google and see if that's even something you're interested in. And Social Security number is huge. If you're applying for financial aid, it's required on the Common App. Make sure you know your Social Security number. Make sure you put that in there. If you put it in incorrectly, it is a disaster. It is extremely difficult. We're sending legal documents over, things that are notarized. We're contacting all the colleges, so you want to make sure. Oh, okay. That's fine. So that's that part. A couple other things that I wanted to say. One being all the information that is important for fall. I'm constantly posting on our Instagram account, so if you don't follow it, it's at Wantagh Guidance. If there's a new scholarship that comes out, if there's a deadline reminder about the transcript request form, I'll say, if you have an 11-1, the last day is 10 whatever, so make sure you see your counselor. What was interesting today is that normally I would see that there's maybe like 300 views, but I noticed with the new phone policy, I'm like, during the day there was like 3 views, and the rest of it, then at night it picked up a bunch. But I'll be a little more mindful of posting earlier, just so that important information. We do have tons of scholarship information on our website. I want to point that out, that majority of students do not apply for, and every year it's 2,000, 5,000, even if it's 250, 500, you could use it for dorm money or for commuting. I know it's almost 7:45. Oh, there we go. Oh, know your role, which we kind of talked about before, about making sure that the essay, you're not putting in too much. It's their experience, making sure that they're at least spending some time with you and you're filling out the application together. They know the best, and they know how they would word things. Making sure that the student is communicating with us directly. Of course, you can email us as the parent, but we love to see the students. Students here know you can email, you can Schoology message us, you can swing by and leave a slip if we're not available. We're always happy to see you. You send the application and the scores if you're sending them, and the application fee. We're going to send the letters of rec and the transcript. The student is going to hand us the transcript request form. Yeah, that's the most important part. Submitting. We recommend you review at least 3 times over and over and over before you hit that first one. I always say scrutinize that first application, because if you feel like, okay, it's good, the other ones will go much quicker because you already did this one big review. Check the check marks, make sure you're checking your email. I told you before, you're going to get that email within 24 or 48 hours. You're going to have to make that individual portal. Know approximately when you should get an admissions decision. So if you're applying rolling, like I said, some of those schools, Arizona and some of those southern schools, are going to be very quick, maybe 2 to 4 weeks. Some of the schools that have early action, Binghamton, Maryland, Ohio, schools like that are typically in January. Most of the time it's mid-January, but there are some schools that will do a little earlier. December's a popular month. Obviously, if you're going early decision, December's the big month for that. But just keep in mind, like, we've had students who came to us in like March or April, and they said, I had never heard back from Wantagh. I don't know what happened, why they didn't hear, and we saw that they never fully submitted. So that was, then we're, getting on the phone and begging and hoping that we, can still help the student, but make sure you fully submitted and that you get that confirmation from Common App. Well, this is kind of archaic. Computers are reading college applications. UNC Chapel Hill said they're going to be using AI to read the essays this year. Just keep in mind, the biggest question we get is that the school hasn't received my information from the counselor. You send it and it's immediate, right? You're getting an immediate response that you set up your portal. It obviously, you haven't even told us that you applied yet, and usually. So just keep in mind that when the college says that the transcript hasn't been received, please give us 2 weeks, that 10 days, make sure. If it's getting closer to November 1, and that was your deadline, or 10/15 for South Carolina, right, at some of those other schools, if it's getting closer to that date and it's still saying that, then send us a message, then swing by, and we can always call the school or rush it over. But it can take several weeks for your application to be marked complete, so just a little patience. It's not as fast as you think, because real people do work in the admissions office, and it can take. The smaller schools, they have, obviously, they have a good system. Some of these bigger schools, they're getting 50, 60,000 applications, so they're dealing with crazy volume. Okay, do you want to? I know we gave you a lot of information, but I will say this is the time to ask questions. Typically, someone who has a question, a lot of times another person has the same question. So if you do have something, whether it's about sending scores, timeline, essay, I don't know if you want to say something. Oh, yes.
So on the Common App for the transcripts and all that, it doesn't get uploaded to the Common App, right? Because of the schools that he has listed, it says, he has 20 schools on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume that actually happened. But one of them said, I have to put the grades onto the Common App, and
Yeah.
all the other 19 say no.
Yes, that's a good point.
You click next, and it says, okay, ninth grade, start putting the grades.
Correct. So there's a handful of schools on this is a great question, because it's actually a lot of steps that most of you will need to know. The Common App, there are certain schools where you have to complete all those grades. The students are getting their transcripts next Friday to review and check over. That they can use that, as long as it looks good to them, as a resource to put in all their information. There are a handful of schools on the Common App that do require that under the courses and grades. So yeah, even the 8th grade grades, if you have the language and algebra or science, whatever you took back then, you would put that there. Having said that, some schools will ask you to upload a picture of your transcript on the Common App, so you can do that as attachment if they let you. Other schools will just wait for your transcript, and then other schools have something called the SRAR. You're going to see that a lot. Binghamton, a lot, Clemson, a lot of the southern schools require that. The SRAR is now called STARS, S-T-A-R-S. That's another system similar to what the Common App has, where you have to, since 8th grade or 9th grade, enter all your grades, the number of credits, since that year. So that transcript becomes very important. It does take time. And here's the big part. Not every school does it the same way. So some schools, you can just fill it out on the STARS website and hit submit, and it'll go to the school. Some schools, you have to first set up that portal. So let's say Binghamton. You have to set up the Binghamton portal first. Then you have to click link to STARS. That's the new one. Then you have to click on, and then you link it that way. It's very stressful. I would say it was the most stress we've ever seen was last year. We were having... My colleague always says the not so common app. She's always saying like it, correct, like you have to do it for that school, and then a whole other school is going to make you do it a different way, or you have to send the transcript, or we have to send the transcript. The biggest takeaway is to read what they want, so it's great that you picked up. You can't submit without it. So, and that's the other thing, these schools, it's a lot of the bigger public universities requiring this STARS. You will not be considered complete, and it has to be in by the deadline. So last year, the day before 10/15 for South Carolina, we had panicked, crying students, and we were all rushing. Like I was like, English 9R, 94. I was like typing as the kid was reading the grades just to get in, because the parents were confused. And like I said, one school wanted it done directly on there, and another school wanted it just linked. It's very stressful.
Well, having gone through this in my family last year, you may not know that you need to fill this thing out. Like some of you might be sitting here and saying, does that apply to me? I don't even know. Check those emails, because it was in an email that said, your application is incomplete. You need to fill out this self-reporting type of thing. And then my son did it. It's tedious, but thankfully we're only here 4 years, so you fill in, took 20 minutes, something like that. It's not terrible, but keep an eye on the emails, because that'll say, oh, this college needs it. This one didn't, but this one does. It's the same thing with the supplementals. Once you get through with the Common App, then you go on that first page, and yeah, your school might say, oh yeah, we have another essay for you, just when you thought you were done. You're going to fill out another, maybe a smaller 300-word essay. And it might be different, as Mrs. Prestiani said. It might be very specific to that college. But the best advice that I can give you is, as a family, check those emails, because even your child, your son or daughter might miss it. But if you're looking at it too, you might say, did you catch that last one from? Because if you're applying to 10, 12, sometimes 20 schools, that's a lot of emails to keep track of. So I would say work together, and you won't miss it. Okay.
And there is a benefit of all this. 1 year from now, we are sending, if you're in this room, most likely your child to either a local school or an away school, and they're going to be navigating a lot of this on their own. So some of these are life lessons that are, the timeliness of things, not waiting till last minute, reading, checking your email, staying organized. Like, this is it, right? We're getting them prepared. This is also why we like to see the seniors in our office. We say, you make an appointment with us. They have to follow up with us. We say, put it down right now in your calendar. Make a note on your Chromebook or whatever that you're going to see us next Monday, and fill it. We're going to work on this next part with you. Or we give them a to-do list. Go back and check with Mr. Tallerine that the letter is going to be uploaded by 10/1. We give them these specifics because we know it's not easy, and they're navigating a lot on their own for the first time, but it's important, because we want to make sure, for some of these students are going hundreds of miles away, we want to make sure that they have a system in place. What else? Questions? Yes.
For the transcript request form, do you list all of the schools on that one form, or is it a separate form?
So you can, I think we have a spot for 8 to 10 schools, something like that. So what we recommend, it's a great question. We recommend, fill it out as you're doing it in batches. So sometimes by deadline. So if you want everything done by 10/1 or 10/15, put all those schools together. And then maybe if you're going to work on more, we've had students who came in with 4, 3 or 4. We've had students who came in 1 each time, because they got one school out, here's the form, they came back the next day, I got another school out. We don't mind. They bring the form. Usually, but some students who are just not done with those supplements, or they're not done with their essay, and they have to adhere to the 10-day prior, they'll just give it to us as a heads up, saying, I'm still working on it, just so we don't miss a deadline. We would, some schools, even New Paltz is extremely strict. 11/1, if it's not in 11/1, you're late, no exceptions. So we would never want to be the holdup. We are on top of it like that, yeah. I know in the front we had a question, right?
2 questions. Some of the schools will talk about they want their averages,
Mm-hmm.
so we want those weighted averages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is it on their transcript, does it specifically say weighted averages? I don't know.
Yes, so they're going to get their final averages next Friday. In that morning meeting, they're going to have the paper copy. I'm getting a ton of students who are already saying I'm going to want an electronic copy. That is fine. We're sending PDFs left and right. I always send it to their personal email, because it's just easier when they're uploading, or they want to have a parent help or look it over. But yes, use the weighted always. Certain schools, Penn State, Indiana, they'll use the weighted. Some schools recalculate your average, and they'll take out business and phys ed and music, unfortunately, like all these great classes, but they'll recalculate the average depending on the school. So, but I say if they're going to take it, use the weighted, show the highest average. It's out of 100. Yeah, we don't rank here other than 1 and 2. So you can just leave that, that we don't rank. Mm-hmm.
So, like for us, we're doing our visits in this block of time now. Even though we're getting our applications in, doing our visits, does Wantagh consider a college visit and a school's absent?
Yes. Just the email.
You want it ahead of time.
It's easier, because then the attendance officer can put it, the secretary can put it in ahead of time, which is great, and then the teachers will see that they're out for the day already, so that's, if you are organized in time. I think one of the best things to do is when you get that email confirmation from Sacred Heart saying, like, your visit's coming up on this date, forward that. Forward that with a little note saying, I'm going to be out on October 1st, I have a college meeting, here's the confirmation, so they can mark that it was excused. Yeah. Danny Donahue, yes?
I know that our transcripts, like our grades are like on a 100 scale.
Mhm.
When we're applying like on Common App, are we able to convert it to a 4.0 scale?
So the only thing with that is that some schools want it uniform. So whatever on your actual transcript, they do like to see that. So even though I know it doesn't make sense, if your average is more than 100, and it doesn't make sense because it doesn't go any higher, you could just keep in mind that, you know, I always say, like, keep it exactly what it says on your transcript, but if you really wanted to, you could. And there's those translators on the Google. Yeah.
They'll see both of those. So like with the actual transcript and registering them, they're going to see it on the 100 scale.
Yes. Yep. Yes. I love when they're laughing. For the
Yeah,
grade they
they're,
get.
It's actually 3 credits of that average. So it is. It's as if they took 3 electives here.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good question, because a lot of students, because we get a lot of questions about my college credits and my AP credits, so it's a great question. My advice, if you have some solid AP scores, depending on the schools you're applying to, but if you have some solid AP scores, I recommend first put them down on the Common App. Now, I have a student who just said the other day, should I show my AP scores? So they had 5s and 4s, 1 3 and 1 2. My advice, I said, leave off the 2. They're like, won't they see? I'm like, they're spending 7 minutes. If someone's really going AP Lit, AP Calc, AP, you know, well, it wouldn't be pre-calc. They really don't have that much time if you're leaving off 1. Physics is a big one that we usually see kind of doesn't make it onto the thing. But I say, like, you've taken all those, plus you get to list the senior year ones. So we have students who have, you know, anywhere from 5 to 15 APs. I think when they're doing snapshots of one, right, they're spending 7 minutes and they see 7 APs or 2 APs, 3 APs, it's going to look great. Sorry, I don't know what that is. Check, mic check. So that's my first thing, is I would list them. If you're not sure, you can always ask your counselor. The other thing that I recommend is, just so you know, you don't send official AP score reports until you decide on the school. So let's just say you've locked in, I'm going to Northeastern, that's my final school. Once you get all your scores that following summer, then you're going to send the official score report. And there was another, and then I brought up college credits. When you're filling out the Common App, it's going to say, have you taken college credits? Say 0. This is if you've taken college credits on a college campus. If you fill it out now with all the courses, they're going to ask for you to send official transcripts from from Syracuse, from Malloy, from LIU. It's going to hold everything up. They're going to see that you took college courses on your transcript. We're going to write about that in our letters about that. So my recommendation, do 0. You don't want anything holding up. And then once you pick that final school, in June, we have meetings with our seniors to go through how do you send those scores. And then, you know, which schools take them, which schools don't.
I just pulled that up.
Yeah, oh, great.
So
Our website, it you know, has all these tabs. It's nicely organized. It has a whole thing there about college course forms. Don't do anything now. Even if you took like college developmental psych last year or college stat last year, don't do anything now. I'd wait till June, because again, they're going to start asking for you to pay to send transcripts, and it's just not needed right now.
your
But-
transcript's not complete.
But these are great questions. Yeah. Who else? What else? Yes. Perfect. Yes, yes. So letters that were requested back in the spring, or should have been requested back in the spring, teachers upload them to Naviance, and there's a form that they have to fill out in order for the letter to go. However, there are some teachers who are writing, Mr. Museo knows, who holds the record? Is it LaPera? Is it?
Who's champ?
Yeah, who's the champ?
I think it was Ms. Burke.
Oh, Miss Burke, right? So, but we hear the same, it's Tallerine, it's Burke, it's LaPera, Naughton, Jones, right? We hear a lot of the same teachers. Some of them are writing 60 letters, 50 letters, 40 letters. They take time. So if you have those early deadlines, you're applying early decision, or you know you want to apply by 10/1, everyone by tomorrow in this room should be saying, hey, how was your summer? Oh, it was great. Now get my letter in. Like, you say it nicely, but you really want to follow up and let them know what that first deadline is, because they're going to think they're used to our old way. They had until November 1. It's just changed so much. So you just want to give a little reminder that I applied early. I just want my counselor said to reach out, let you know that I have some early deadlines. Would you be able to upload the letter by this date? Thank you so much. No. You can ask us. Yeah. Yeah. So typically, when I know for my students, when that student, so if Danny, if you came to me with your transcript request form, I'll be like, wait a second, okay, you asked this teacher for a letter, I'll say, wait 1 second. I'll try to jump on usually to Naviance and see if his letter's in, because if it's not, I'm going to say, go in person now, and then do a follow-up message. Other counselors might do it differently, but I'll try to hold on to the student and just trust my current brain in the moment and just say, like, where are we at? Because I know, some of these, like I said, October 15th is coming in a blink. So we want to make sure those letters are in.
Other questions?
I know we covered a lot. It's a long second day of school. And if not, if you think of something, you can always reach out to Mr. Musio or myself. I'm happy to help, even if I'm not your child's counselor. But your specific child's counselor is phenomenal. We're all here many years, so we're happy to help. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much. Good luck. Thank you. Good luck. We want everyone to get in everywhere.